Have you ever returned home to your home country after an extended period of time living and working abroad and felt completely out of place? Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I have been living and working abroad now for more than 19 years, and I've had a pretty good experience. I've built up a lot of knowledge in that time, and one of the things that was most surprising for me was reverse culture shock. In today's video, I'm going to cover all the personal experiences. I'm going to cover the struggles that reverse culture shock can bring to you. Now, often people prepare for culture shock. I'll link my video at the end, but they don't prepare for the feeling of reverse culture shock when you go home. So let's dive in, folks. First things first, what is it, Paul? What is reverse culture shock? Well, basically, it's the struggles, it's the challenges, it's the emotional struggles people face when they can come back home for the first time in a long time after living and working abroad. This can be very disorientating, okay? Because you're coming back to a place that was home and now it feels completely alien, right? It feels like you're a foreigner, like you don't belong. So the first thing I would say, common aspects, the first thing would be feeling out of place. This is exactly how I felt when I came back from Canada in my first year. I felt completely disconnected from family, from friends, from everybody and everything Scotland, okay? The customs, even the people that you used to relate to closely, like your best friends, you feel completely different to them. Now, in the most part, when you travel, people will not change, people will not grow, but you will. After even just 1 year, imagine every single day of your life speaking and meeting new people, speaking to them. And you're not making small talk, you're not talking about, the weather like they do a lot in Scotland and, the mundane things like, daily routine, daily grind. When you're traveling and living abroad, generally, especially me in the first year backpacking, I was talking about new locations, new countries, new sites. You're meeting people from different continents, not just countries, continents. And it's very, very interesting. And conversations will be very stimulating, very interesting. And it's just great. And it makes you feel alive. To come back to Scotland and talk about how the sky's not so good and it's always going to rain today, it's really disheartening and it's really quite depressing. That's how I felt. Now you'll notice things that you didn't notice before, right? Like I'm saying to you, social norms, the way people interact, their attitudes, people just live in Scotland and they don't live to work, but they need to work to survive. And that's kind of how it is. Whereas in other countries, it might be a little different. Now, changes in relationships, I've just explained to you there about family, about friends. Let's go family first, right? Family, in the most part, will not be able to understand what you're talking about unless they have done it themselves, okay? If your mom or your dad or your sister, brother has traveled and lived in another country, yeah, they're the ones you want to talk to. But in my case, nobody, okay? So they couldn't relate to it. It's not that they weren't interested in what I was saying, they just had no connection to it. They've never lived it, never experienced it. With your best friends as well, it's, that way you have a good rapport with your best mates, and you talk about this, and you talk about that, and it's always the same, but it's good fun, it's a good laugh. That kind of changes when you come back after a long time abroad because you are not used to it, but also that conversation that you used to have, that banter as we call it in Scotland, it's a little different now when you come back and you don't quite feel as connected as before. That's quite lonely. And that's the feeling of isolation that I had as well. So frustration is a feeling, isolation is a feeling. You'll hear things a lot like, hey, you've changed, or why can't you just settle in? That's not easy and they won't understand that. And to come back home and feel like your home is not your home is a really, really scary experience. And even to this day, folks, this is 18 years later after my first year abroad, I still feel the same. It's almost like my spirit is free. I don't belong to one country. And that's an interesting thought because why should we belong to one country? Yeah, we have a passport. Yeah, we were born there. But we live in the world, everybody. The world is a huge place. We don't have to stay in our country. We don't have to keep going back to our country. We live in the world. And that's the way I see it. You're dreaming of the country you've left, okay? This is kind of like romanticizing about the thing that you can't have. So when I came back from Canada, I couldn't stop thinking about Canada and my time in Vancouver and how I loved it. Let's just say the food, maybe the culture, the social norms, the day-to-day activities, the public services, the lifestyle, the weather, the people, so many things. And when I came back to Scotland, it was just the same grey, dull, environment. And the people were just going through the same emotions day in, day out. And I just wanted to go. And that's what I did after 3 months. I went. But yeah, I wish it would have felt better when I came home, because maybe I would have stayed. Now, number 4, you'll start to reassess who you are as a person. You'll start to reassess your identity. For me, living abroad changed me profoundly. It gave me the emphasis, the kind of belief. It opened my eyes. It opened my mind. I grew up. I feel like I grew up. I became a man after that year abroad. I was a boy when I left Scotland. I know 23 is not young, but I was still like a boy. I was living with my parents during university before that. And when I came home, I was a man and I was ready completely after living, solo for a year. So I will always connect my travel to, maturing. And that for me was a huge step. How you view the world, right? When you live in Scotland or England or wherever it is you live, you often don't really look much above and beyond those boundaries. But when you go to other countries and continents, you quickly realize that the world is a big place and it's pretty open and it's pretty welcoming. And you do have the ability to go and work and live in other countries. So why not take it? Returning home will make you question whether you truly belong, okay, or what home even means. That's pretty sad, but that's reality. I'm not here to spread lies, or fool you. Home will probably lose the connection for you if it's anything like my experience. People call it the travel bug, okay? So when you travel and live abroad, it's a travel bug. You never lose it. I've never lost it. I still have it, even though I've been living in Korea now for a very long time. It's kind of like a second home to me, this one. Obviously, Scotland still is my home, and I'll always view it as that, but it's not a home that I have to go back to, if that makes sense. Now, finally, tips for managing it. I cannot give you many tips because I only lasted 3 months and then I left, and obviously I've hardly been back in all those years. But I would say give yourself time to adjust. Don't, expect to feel comfortable after only 1 week. You're going to have to take your time. And I mean, really take your time. If it helps you, stay connected to the people you left in your previous country. For example, for me, Canada, email them, talk to them. Maybe they've went home, share your experiences, share your issues, your problems, because maybe they will be the ones that understand you the most. Focus on the positives, okay? Coming home is great because you'll be with family and you'll be with friends that you left before. Familiar foods, cultural traditions like Christmas time. Obviously, it's a family time, right? Christmas. But I didn't stay long enough for Christmas time. I was only back from May until like October or something, my second year. And then I went to Korea at that time. But focus on your family, right? If you can get enough from your family or being with your family or your best friends, maybe that's enough for most of you. But for me, the time apart, you grow apart. And once you grow apart, you kind of lose that closeness, which effectively makes it easier to go again. And finally, simply accept that your spirit is now free. You've unlocked the doors to your free spirit. It is now free. You're free. There's no boundaries. There's no shackles connecting you to Scotland or to England, wherever it is you come from. Don't let anyone tell you that, oh, you're Scottish, you're English, you need to raise your family there. Absolutely not. You can do whatever you want in your life. It's up to you and only you to decide that, okay? Always have the belief in yourself, the confidence. It's hard to get the motivation, but if you push yourself and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and the promise of better things to come, that's where motivation is key. All right, thanks for listening to me today. That's a little bit about my experience of reverse culture shock. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.